Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Mike Evans. I ran a little late at an appointment, so I'm actually shooting this one from my car. I promised I wouldn't do very many car videos in my life, but here I am. I didn't want to keep you guys waiting. So, in my years, let's say decades, it's been a while, of experience as a martial arts instructor and as a child development trainer and coach, as a parent coach, because that is a big part of what I do as well. One of the things that we come across is that we have what we call the most common complaints. And these are the things that every time a child comes in, we ask, like, what are you trying to accomplish in your time here at my martial arts school? Now, we come up with a whole bunch of interesting things, but a lot of the ones come up again and again and again. We call these our most common complaints. And these are the things that we either through training with the child work to correct, or the other side of it is through training with the parent we try to correct. And here's why. Very often parents, especially new parents, I was a new parent once upon a time. Fortunately, I had years of experience as the oldest sibling and as a martial arts instructor. Newer parents have these expectations, these fears and judgments of what their child should be doing. And they base it on things they read in books, things they see other kids doing, comparing against the Joneses or the Smiths or whoever, or just they don't know and they're just trying to figure it all out. It's normal. Parenting does not come with a manual. So one of the things that I do is I get to talk to parents and kind of assuage their fears and expectations. Everybody wants their child to not only be normal, but to be exceptional. And sometimes when we see the kids doing things that we don't consider normal or exceptional, we worry. So here's an example. Mrs. Smith comes into my school and says, I'm bringing little Johnny here. By the way, martial arts moms are always Mrs. Smith or Mrs. Johnson, and their kids are always named Johnny. It's just how it works. Little Johnny comes into the school. We ask Mrs. Smith, and she says, little Johnny just can't focus. He doesn't follow instructions. I tell him all the time, constantly, what he should be doing. He just won't listen to me. Well, guess what? Little Johnny is 3. Kids who are between the ages of 3 and 4 are at a stage of development where they can't process commands beyond maybe 2 steps. So come over here and sit down. That's about it. Not come over here, sit down, be quiet. Oh, hey, it's Heidi, my partner in crime. Say hi.
Hi.
So these kids are at a stage of development where, no, they cannot follow commands that you're telling them. Hey, go get dressed. Yes, they can get dressed, but you're not going to be able to give them those 3, 4, 5-step complex commands and expect them to follow through. You get 2 steps of command. To complicate matters, little Johnny is 3. He has 30% of his language skill. Imagine if you took French in high school for 4 years. I took French in high school for 4 years. And now I go to France. How much of that conversation am I actually going to be able to follow? 10%, 20%, 30%? I'll have to figure the rest out by context. And that's what's happening when you're telling little Johnny, hey, little Johnny, I need you to go to your room and get dressed and then come back so that we can leave. Well, that was 4 steps, and you did it in an adult conversation. You got maybe one of those things through to little Johnny. Hey, go to your room. And they disappear for 5 minutes, and you go looking for them, and they're sitting in the middle of the room playing. It's not that he didn't follow instructions. He followed what he understood. So our expectation didn't match the ability of our child. So Mrs. Johnson comes, what did I say, Mrs. Smith before? Mrs. Johnson comes in, and she also has a child named Johnny, coincidentally. And she says, little Johnny just won't sit still. All he does, I try to tell him, like, hey, this is what you have to do, and he just won't sit still. He won't do what I tell him to do. Well, this little Johnny is 5.5 years old. Well, 5.5 years old, kids are not motivated by an authority figure telling them what to do. They're motivated by showing an authority figure what they can do. So while you're telling little Johnny, the older little Johnny, look, I need you to go in your room and get dressed and then come out so we can go. They can follow those 4-step commands. They can process probably 90% of what you said, but they're not interested in going and doing what you told them unless they get the positive feedback from you. Hey, look, Mom, I put on my shirt all by myself. Hey, look, I'm going to tie my shoes all by I just want to leave. We got to go. I got a doctor's appointment. You're trying to get out the door. He's looking for connection. He wants to be able to show you what he can do. So again, our expectation is not matching the stage of development of our child. one of the ways we can correct that is to just quickly acknowledge it, show a connection like, oh, that's great. I sometimes have problems tying my shoes, or I tie my shoes the exact same way. Good, now let's go. I got to get to a doctor's appointment. It only takes an extra moment, and by meeting their need, now things are flowing. So, Mrs., let's see, I use Smith & Johnson. Mrs., I don't know, Mrs. Jones. Mrs. Jones comes in, and her child, coincidentally named Johnny, her child comes in and say, Mrs. Jones, what would you like to work with little Johnny the Third here in our martial arts school? And she says, oh, you know, I try to tell him what to do, and he just does whatever he wants. It's not that he won't listen. He's just off on a tangent doing what he doesn't even pay attention to me. Well, this little Johnny is 8.5 years old. Between the ages of 7 and 9, you cannot motivate them with parental control. You can't motivate them with connection. Now, of course, there are exceptions. These children are motivated by what they perceive that they want. What is the desire they have for themselves? It's actually a pretty cool stage of development when you kind of get into it. But when they see something that they want, or they decide that they want to be able to do something, that's what motivates them. So the key with that age group is building intrinsic motivation. Hey, Johnny, I want you to, Johnny the Third, I want you to go in and clean your room because people who are awesome ninjas have clean rooms. You know, not the best example, but I'm thinking off the top of my head here. So now what I've done is cleaning the room is secondary. It's not even the thing that we're talking about. I'm talking about little Johnny is a martial artist, and he wants to be the awesomest ninja there is, and how do I become an awesome ninja? Oh, ninjas have clean rooms? Psh, I'm going to clean my room. Now, it might not be that simple in actual application, but that's the example of how knowing the stage of development of my child and matching my expectation of what they can and will do to how I interact with them will shift. So, let's see, we did Smith, Johnson, Jones, Mrs. Aloysius comes in, and she, I don't know, it was just the popular name at the time. She has a child named Johnny, and she says, oh, he's so lazy. I can't get him off the couch. I try to get him to class, and I try to get him to do things with his friend. He just wants to sit on the couch. I tell him to do something, and he says, yeah, Ma, and then he doesn't do it. I don't know if he's lying to me, or is he just going to be a lazy slob when he grows up like his father, or, you know. This little Johnny the Fourth, is 13 years old. Now, at around age 10, give or take, somewhere between the ages of 10 and 14 for most kids, they enter a new stage of development where they are transitioning from childhood to adulthood, at least anatomically and physiologically. So what happens is their brains start to rewire from the back to the front. And what happens is the back becomes wickedly intelligent, but the front, where all your decisions are made, isn't quite functioning at the same level as their wickedly intelligent back brain. They make boneheaded decisions like, yeah, I'm just going to sit on the couch and listen instead of listening to Mom, or I'm going to, oh, it looks like cool fun to jump off this building. Boneheaded decisions that in retrospect they go, well, yeah, it was pretty stupid. They know it's stupid, but they did it anyway. Also, because of all this rewiring and the sudden growth spurts, they're going from that little 4-foot fidget to now they're going to shoot up over your head real quick. Within a couple years, they're going to grow muscle. Their bodies are going to start to produce all sorts of hormones as we go into teenage years. That takes energy. So within that rewiring of the brain includes some rewiring patterns, some neurological patterns that are designed to conserve energy. Anything that is perceived to be too hard, instead of attempting it, the tendency will be to avoid it. Anything that is too easy, the tendency will be to avoid it. Anything that is in any way challenging beyond the need to exist, the tendency will be to avoid it. We perceive that as laziness. Just go clean your room. Just mow the lawn. Just go take a shower, right? We perceive this as a laziness that they won't do it. But in reality, it's science, it's chemistry, it's neurology that's causing them to be like that. And when we recognize it and kind of relate it, these kids are motivated mostly by their peers, not by you. They're going to have closer relationships with their friends than you. Sorry, but that's how it is, unless you have an amazing relationship with your children. finding ways to relate it to how they're going to interact with their friends, relating stories about, oh, I just bumped into other Johnny's mom, Mrs. Smith, whatever it was, and she said that her little Johnny takes a shower like 5 times a day. At first, oh, that's stupid. And then watch how the showers start. So our expectations and our fears for our children, especially as first-time parents, or especially if our kids are surrounded by other awesome kids, like our martial arts students are surrounded by other martial arts students who are all pretty awesome kids, if I do say so myself. So when you judge in that framework, our expectation versus surroundings, we start to see that maybe it's not them that needs to change, it's me. What I expect, or the ways in which I interact with my children. Now, here's the cool thing. If you would like to learn more about the different stages of development that your kids are going through, better ways to interact and connect with them, and how they're motivated at each stage of development, or even the things that are normal for them to be able to do or not be able to do, we have a new group associated with this page, and it's called Parent Skills by Talk with Mike. You could click the groups tab right on this page, or you could just search that Parent Skills by Talk with Mike right up in the bar. That group is for just parents. We're going to be leading some exercises and workshops in that group, doing some coaching and some training, and it should be a safe, private place. It's a closed group only members can see, where we're going to talk about our challenges that we face every day and our successes. We want to make sure we're approaching things with a strength mindset, not a weakness mindset. So you can go right to that group, join it, we'll approve you. You can watch, lurk, sit on the side and kind of check out what's going on, or what we prefer, jump right in and start commenting with your tips, your ideas, things that have worked for you, or just if you're having a problem, let us know. That's what I'm here for. You have me as the expert to be able to help you out. So I hope to see you in the group. I hope you got a little something out of this video. If you know somebody that needs a little help or who might benefit from what we're doing here, invite them to the page, invite them to the group, or even just tag them in this video or share it, whatever. All right? Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, especially parenting your kids. Bye-bye.